right, welcome to Creative Perceptions, where your dreams meet your reality. My name is Zachary Rogers, and today I have a special guest. He's an author, he's a husband, he's a Sigma, he's my line brother, he's a teacher,
Ooh,
and
buddy.
and he has his own business and his own website. Today we're welcome to have none other than Mr. Calvin Samuel. How are you, sir? How's your day?
Doing well. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate
Absolutely. Had to get the LB. Had to get the LB on here. Educator, he's doing phenomenal things. You're trailblazing in multiple spheres of influence. So we just want to commend you and we had to get you on. So as we start off the show, we're going to start off with our Let's Talk Current, which is our first portion of the podcast where you're kind of just answering questions right off the rip. Have fun. It's a conversation at the end of the day. We're family, like you said. So my first question, why Lincoln University? Proud alum of Lincoln. Take me there. Walk me through your journey of Lincoln. Why Lincoln? How'd you get to Lincoln? How were your thought processes? And what did you major in? You're a teacher now, so like walk us through that journey of Lincoln.
Yeah, sure. So when I was picking schools, I picked Lincoln University, I picked Howard, I picked Clark Atlanta, and I picked Morehouse. So I didn't get accepted into Morehouse. I didn't get accepted into Howard. I got accepted into Clark Atlanta, and then I got accepted into Lincoln University. So now I'm thinking, okay, do I want to go to the A or do I want to go to PA? At this time, I'm living in Brooklyn, New York. That's where I'm originally from, born and raised.
Shout out to New York.
Yes, indeed. So my church brothers and church sisters and mentors, they went to Lincoln. So of course, they were like, we're not going to sway you in any way, pray about it, and then make a decision. So I took a week or two and prayed very heavily, and I was like, okay, God, please direct me on the path that you want me to go. At that time, they had a one-day drive-through Lincoln University where you were able to come on campus and kind of figure out what you wanted to do. Got to meet the admissions representatives, got to see classrooms. They had a couple of events lined up for one-day drive-through. And I toured the campus and I was like, this is home. I got to make this a thing for me. So this was 2008. And then fall 2008, I got on campus. My mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my great aunt dropped me off to school. And my great grandmother, she passed like a year later. But when she dropped me off, she said, remember why you're here. Remember to learn your lesson, because my family's from Antigua, from the Caribbean. And remember to follow the values that we instilled in you. And I told her, I got you. My mom cried. My aunt got a little emotional too. I was living in McCrary Hall on the second floor, shopping McCrary. And I got to meet my college roommate, Gerald Swain, who's like a brother to me now, but he hated my guts back then. I tell this story all the time. Uh, he wanted to be on the football team.
Mhm.
He got a chance to move in earlier than I did. I came in. He's like, "Who's this guy?" Um, and then we eventually like started bonding. I think one time, like he lent he lent me his hoodie. That's how we had started bonding. He lent me his hoodie.
Mhm.
We walked to the cafeteria, and then we were just chopping it up and talking. And over time, we built a strong bond and friendship to the point that he was in my wedding. Um, I've been at events for him. He's been at events for me, and we just became family, honestly and truly. I met my wife, sophomore year experience. We were both student leaders on campus, and I was trying to figure out what I really wanted to do in terms of leadership. So I started out being a student leader, and then there was a lady named Hassan Mujahid, who told us in the little gym, if you're familiar with Lincoln University's campus, we have a big gym and a small gym. And the
Mhm.
small gym was the end campus. Um, that was when she was like, "Oh, introduce yourself to someone in the room." So like I had like this movie moment where like it seemed like everybody faded in the background, and then like Rashana at the time, Staley, now Samuel, and we were like this, and then we started gravitating towards each other. I remember her having a ponytail, white shirt, blue jeans on, black, red, and white Jordans on, and we just talked for like a good second. And in that moment, before I even approached her and she approached me, God everybody was like, "That's your wife." Um,
Wow.
hadn't known anything about her, hadn't seen her previous to this moment. I passed that cross previously, but apparently, like when it's God ordained, he doesn't allow something to be revealed to you to the moment where it's supposed to be having that
Right.
moment of revelation.
Right.
Because we've been at events before, and I didn't know that she was there. She didn't recognize I was there. So um, went through that. I initially wanted to be a psychologist because I wanted to help families and be a
Mhm.
therapist. Um, if you ever have taken a psychology statistics class,
Mhm.
that's how challenging it truly is. And no matter how hard I studied, got tutoring, um, got extra help,
Mhm.
I couldn't get anything higher than a B minus in either class. Because I took
Right.
statistics one and got C plus, to statistics two got B minus.
Right.
Um, met a lot of wonderful people on campus that have ranged from being in my wedding when me and my wife got married July 21st, 2018, coming upon
Mhm.
5 years of marriage, um, to people who I still can call on this day for anything, and likewise. And then I took a professor by the name of Dr. Walker. At the time, her name was Professor Walker. Um, and she said, "I'm trying to figure out, like, who are you?" She just kept asking that, posing that question, like, "Who are you?" Everybody kept looking around like, why is she saying the same question over and over?
Mhm.
And she taught us how to operate as young African American men and young African American women, how to stand in a room, how to command someone's presence, how to speak with confidence, how to be sure in the information that you're presenting. Had other professors like Dr. Babatunde and other professors like Dr. Malwini and Dr. Petchower who helped groom me as an educator. Um, they challenged me in every way. Um, Also, Dr. Poe, Professor Poe, so many teachers that challenged me along the way, but they were awesome in terms of not only leadership, but tutelage and making sure that they not only held me accountable outside the classroom, but also inside of the classroom. Like if
Right.
I was at a social event, um, Dr. Poe would say, "Well, remember that paper's due." Granted, I already did it because that's just how I am. Like people used to clown me all the time when I was at Lincoln, like, "Oh, Calvin be that one that has a final paper due and who'll have it done by October and homecoming." Sure do, because guess what? At the end of the semester when you're stressing, I'm not gonna be stressing.
Right.
5 all-nighters at Lincoln University. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit of my education journey. I was Mr. Orange and Blue and I was at
Alright.
part of Royal Court. Shout out to my Miss Orange and Blue, Mercedes. She's awesome in her own right, does communications and other things, and it's been a journey.
That's what's up, man. All right, we're gonna kind of segue. You kind of broke down like how you kind of thought you wanted to be in the psychology field or the psychology realm and things of that nature. Breakdown of the mind. Did you know, when did you know that you wanted to teach, and how did you know? Because sometimes we kind of look at teaching when you're going through K through 12 and you're going to college. I never want to be a teacher. I don't want to deal with these crazy people. I was one of these crazy people. So how did you know that, like, oh wait, I might like teaching? And how did you know, and when do you think you knew, or when did you realize?
So going back to the Professor Walker
Mhm.
example that I laid out earlier, um, that was my first course where I felt like I was getting something of substance in.
Mhm.
And then as I was learning different things from other teachers, that's when I was like, oh, I think I like this. I think this is maybe a way for me to be able to help families because mentorship is a very big thing, which is it's one of my pillars within my company, uh,
Mhm.
called accessing individual mentality.
Mhm.
And as you see, it's a person who's showing another person how to aim for the target,
Mhm.
right? Everybody has an individual target. And I had a knack for being able to break down information that really was complex in the simplest form. And I like the process of that. I like the process of lesson planning. I like the process of being able to help a student get past what their previous limitation was and teach them to be able to not only rise above it, but to reach a new height.
Right.
So that's how I got into teaching. Like I always tell people within the teaching profession, you don't choose teaching, teaching chooses you.
Facts.
Everybody's gonna want to be an educator. Not everybody has the knack to be an educator. Like having the knowledge is one thing,
Mhm.
but being able to transfer that knowledge is sometimes where people get caught up.
Mhm.
How to break it down to its simplest form is how people get caught up. I did not have an educational journey that was by any stretch of imagination easy. Um, I took my praxis at least 10 times before I passed it. Took it one time in the summer, three times. And mind you, the praxis is $180
Jesus.
time you take it. So I paid for it three times in the summer. I took a supplementary course, which was another $100. And I studied nonstop till I finally was able to pass my praxis for social studies. So it was one resilience. It wasn't easy. I started from the bottom, the cold Drake. Now I'm here. Um, I started as a teacher's assistant at Belmont Charter in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. All right.
Yep. And I worked my way up from being a virtual learning coach to being a fifth and sixth grade social studies teacher and ELA teacher to being seventh grade. Went to eighth, did high school for a little bit as a 10th grade teacher, did a collegiate course over the summer, and I also have been seventh grade social studies teacher for the past couple of years at Calvin R. McCullough Middle School in Newcastle, in Colonial School District. So yeah, I have been through the gauntlet and the fire for sure. Um, but I came out stronger because of all the things that I had to do. Like people say all the time, if you haven't fought hard for what you're trying to get for you won't find the will to sustain it. Uh,
Facts.
and it's so true.
Facts. All right. So you kind of already answered. First off, thank you for that, and thank you for teaching because it takes a lot to be a teacher, especially in today's society. The expectations, limited resources, no matter where you are, honestly. Um, so you already answered part of this question. You already answered how you met your wife. Now some of your books talk about one of your books talk about it.
Mhm.
Why is marriage important? When we live in a society where people experiment with open relationships, when people talk about the divorce rates climbing, things of that nature, for you as a believer, as someone of the faith, someone from the Caribbeans, why is marriage important to you?
Um, so the reason why I felt that was necessary for me is because of this. I believe that if you're loving someone, you're committed to them, and you see that you are going to really truly build a lifestyle with them. I think marriage is something that is intimate and it's needed. Being able to, a good friend of mine always says, marriage is bringing two individual people from two individual walks of life who have two different ideologies that are trying to be on the same page, work as a team. Um, the idea of marriage being 50-50 is not true. Want to make that abundantly clear because our former
Yeah.
first lady even mentioned it. There's gonna be time where your partner gets 70 and you have 30,
Mhm.
times where it's vice versa. Last night was a moment. I'm a new father. My son is turning 7 weeks old. I didn't have anything to give mentally or physically. My wife was able to take the mantle up and say, I'm going to carry it for the night. I got him. You rest. Um, Something that is so beautiful within marriage is the opportunity to be selfless. You are choosing to be with this person, not out of necessity, not because you love them. Because honestly, if we're being frank, love sometimes fades, right? It also evolves. It has evolution to it. It has depth to it. So when you look at marriage, from my perspective, it's an opportunity to constantly keep growing, but it's an opportunity to be selfless and choosing to be selfless so your partner can be filled and that cup can be filled. So that's the reason why I elected to get married, because I already knew that it was a goal for myself. Um, I wanted to make sure that I am holding myself accountable to what I said my believing and my beliefs are. Um, Not knocking anybody for anything that they do,
Thanks.
because we've all been a part of a journey. And I'm not gonna sit up here and say I didn't have to walk through my journey in order to get to where I am within marriage. And I'm still walking the journey, because the real work begins after you get married. That's the reason why I elected to um have my book on marriage. I do psych a journey of marriage and beyond, because there are levels from being with your mate to then engaging your mate, then deciding to marry. And people sometimes get so caught up on the wedding day that they
Mhm.
forget to build beyond that day. And I really wanted to make that a focal point and a point of emphasis, because oftentimes you hear people say, "Oh, well, I've been planning my wedding since I was X amount of age." But have you planned your actual marriage, right? Because the wedding is for other folk. Let's just be honest. That's for
Yeah.
eat, drink, dance, have fun, and you may or may not see these people after, right?
Right.
Or you might have people who have not you haven't heard from in years, family included, because it happened to me. Um, and people sometimes feel out of obligation,
Mhm.
because this person has been with you for X amount of time, that you want to invite them to the wedding, but the marriage is the pillar, it's the foundation. You got to remember why you decide to get married, because you do have tough times. You have times with your partner and you don't see eye to eye. You have moments where they say that you shouldn't go to bed mad, right? And
Right.
I'm not telling anybody not to follow that word of advice. But again, my personal journey, my personal story. There have been moments where I said, you know what, because of time, so what's going on, I don't think we're going to be any more productive in this conversation, and vice versa. So we've had to table the conversation and then come back to it.
That's real. That's real. Thank you for that transparency. So,
Okay.
you kind of talked about AIM. You kind of gave some residual effects as to how it kind of came apart or how it formulated, so to speak. So, where did it come from? You kind of talked about your experience with one of your first professors. They kind of gave you that formula, gave you substance in the course, and then you're a knack for your brain to process certain things and like put things together. When did you come and say, "Oh, I want to create something. I want to create this incubator known as AIM"? How did that come about? Like, and how did you come up with the acronym, the name, and the whole thing? Because acronyms, we love acronyms. So how did that come to be?
So The idea of AIM was technically birthed back when I was a freshman in college. The execution of AIM didn't really happen until I was 30. I'm now 33, about to be 34.
Jesus here. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't want anybody to feel like, okay, it's gonna be an overnight sensation. No, you gotta build. All right. Um, and can I share my screen for a moment?
Absolutely, go for it. We're creative perceptions. Hold on.
No problem.
Should be able to share now.
Okay, perfect. So as you see up top here, it's called accessing individual mentality. The email is a.i.m.tossucceed89 at gmail.com. So I'm gonna just walk you through my page. Um, so I always wanted to have people start with the relationship with themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll say, okay, why did I attract this person in my environment? So we have to first start with self and understand what is it within us that's working and what's in it us that needs to grow and improve. So when we talk about relationship coaching, we talked about the fact that I'm going to lead you through a transformative journey that's along with knowing who are your immediate and who's your extensive circle, because those circles that you have within you allow you to build your confidence within. Or it can sometimes destroy the confidence within because you have people who may not have walked the walk that you are walking, or people who are thinking, like, I can't see this person doing this because no one in our family has done this. Or this person, I can't see them doing this because I haven't done this. So your circles that you have, your extensions of yourself, is a result of how you plant yourself
Mm-hmm.
or yourself and who you are, and how do you go about measuring and cultivating success, because that's a part of our mission. Now when it talks about mentoring, I got mentored since the age of 13 by some phenomenal people in my life through my church in Brooklyn, What Shall I Render Ministries, by Pastor Lucille Scott, Kyle Smith, Leslie Farrell, Anthony Johnson, Sister Shonda, Sister Deidre, Brother Kelly, Brother Armani, um, and many, many other people. So, lifestyle that you want is already within you, right? How many times do we sit down and something is birthed in our spirit, but we don't enact on it? We might not enact on it because the fact that we're either challenged, we don't think that we can do it,
All
we
right.
don't think we're enough. And I want to be able to show skills and measures and tools that shows that not only are you enough, but you have everything within you to accomplish what you set out to
Right.
do. And that's why within this measure, it says, I will show you how to take the idea you have from thinking to concrete steps. Because the first question that's normally had is, okay, I had this vision, I had this idea, where do I start? So we formulate steps that are very concrete, that are very measurable, in order to make sure that you get from the birthing process of your idea to something that is concrete, tangible, formative in front of you. Um, and it makes sure that it's aligned with what you think, what you say, right?
Right.
And being a believer, it says in the Bible that it says, in the tongue you have the power of life and you have power of death. You choose. It's the same thing over your dreams. You have the power to believe, or you have the power to dismantle. Which one are you going to choose to do? And as mentioned here, I do have two books. So I do Cycle Journey, Marriage, and Beyond.
Mhm.
and creating your circles, building your confidence within,
Mhm.
right? So the building the confidence within was among me and two of my colleagues who we used to call each other doctor, teacher, judge, right? I'm a teacher now. My good friend, he's a doctor. And
Hmm.
at the age of 23, he was the youngest PhD student at Dell State.
Wow.
Um, and my friend, she works as a lawyer, and she's working her way to being a judge one day.
Love it.
So goal setting, right? Plan, prepare, purpose. When you work with me, that's what we're gonna root ourselves in. Doesn't matter if we're doing relationship coaching, we're doing stress management, doing career advice. This is where we root ourselves in. So, what is life coaching? What do we offer? Personal design sessions, easy accessible content, virtual chats, and also social media content. The mission, as it says here, is plant yourself, cultivate success. Vision, each person is unique, and so are your dreams. Let's establish you and the potential that's within. The history, I created AIM with the purpose of instilling in people that they are worthy of healthy relationships with themselves and others. Also, for the purpose that young people have visions, dreams, goals, and aspirations that need to be channeled through making relationships where they can connect. Ultimately, bridging a gap from an idea to a creation. And as we go down, these are some of the things we have: online coaching, such as goal setting, and then we have workshops that are available. And these are some interviews that I've done in the past that range from people who are authors to people who have went ahead and been wellness coaches to other authors. Um, the Saran strategy, she's doing amazing work. She's an actress now. She's getting a lot of major roles. My cousin here, her cut story, the power that lies in the story, talked
Mm.
a little bit about why do women decide to cut their hair? And what was their journey or decision making behind cutting their hair? Wellness coach here, Jamila, again, a good friend of mine from Lincoln University. She's a wellness coach. She shows you how to be able not to only figure out how are you doing things physically, what are you doing mentally, what are you putting inside of your body, what are you looking at? All that has components to improve on your wellness as a whole. Done a couple of things here in terms of motivational speeches as well. And I've talked to people who have been in the realm of finance, a fellow podcaster, relationship pound cake proverbs, as well as someone who has their own studio and talk show talking about Christ and also making their own shows and movies as well. So this is just some of the things that I've done over the years. Birthing your dreams, confusion through comparison, vision versus correction, succeeding, are you or are you not? Your power, your vulnerability. People talk about vulnerability all the time, and they wonder if that's something that is a asset or a deficit.
All right. I love it. So you kind of touched on your book. How did a book come about? Because most people don't write their first book until a dissertation or at all. You do have those that are in between, but like you wrote two books. You said you're in the process of a third of them, correct? At
Yeah.
least, okay. So how did the books, as quickly as you can, like kind of talk about like how those books came about, because that's a very big deal. And sometimes knowing you and learning more about you, you slide those books like it's not a big deal, and it's a very big deal. So how did these books come apart? Could come to be?
So with the first book, Creating Your Circles, Building Your Confidence Within, that came about me actually riding the train up and down Philly from Northeast to 30th Street um, every day because I was working with a program called City Year, Greater Philadelphia at the time, where we helped students, close the achievement gap, and help them stay in school and be able to graduate on time. So I knew I had the idea of wanting to get the book started, but I asked God, I said, hey, what do you want me to call this title? What should the outline look like? And after that, it just pretty much wrote itself. Um, when I wrote my second book, I Do Psych, A Journey, Marriage, and Beyond, that was a time where I was still living in Philadelphia, hadn't moved to Wilmington yet. Um, I had wrote it and then I put it down for a couple years.
Mm.
And when I was getting engaged, God was tapping me on the shoulder like, it's time to pick that book back up that I had you start. So
Right.
um and then I have real like life connection to it. So I had the opportunity to be able to sit there and be like, okay, why do I want to write this? I wanted to write this because again, a lot of people around our age either didn't have a good example of marriage, um, didn't see the reason for it, um, didn't want to get divorced because that's a fear for some folks. The fear of someone being able to take half of what you earned. Um, and quite frankly, some people may not be ready, right? Marriage isn't something that you just jump into. You gotta be sure. You
Right.
gotta be really, really, really sure, right? So I wanted to show that there's a journey along the way of me and my wife, us being boyfriend and girlfriend, being at Lincoln's campus, to then deciding, okay, we're going to move in together. Um, Now for some, especially if you old school, you kind of look at it like, well, you're a believer, so how could you go ahead and shack up? Because that's what I was hearing a lot of the time. I was like, why are you shacking up? If you know you're gonna go ahead and actually marry this person, why don't you just at least put a ring on her finger? And I was like, well, this is the reason why. I decided that I wanted to make sure I knew before I put the ring on the finger. Like after you go to K's or any other store, that is not the time to do a retract. You can't retract that. Sorry. Like an investment is an investment. So I needed to be very sure on both of our ends that we were gonna get the proper return on both of our investments from the perspective of that we what we were walking into. We knew who each other were. We knew what each other's blind spots were. We knew each other's strengths, and we knew how we were gonna help propel each other. Because at the time of us getting engaged and everything, both of us were in grad school working on our masters. Both of us were working. Both of us were planning for a wedding. So you gotta be sure because there's a lot of like nights that you're up, and then we didn't have a wedding that was on U.S. soil. We had a destination wedding, so that's a added extra component that you have to be following up via email and calling and using WhatsApp and all these different modalities to get things done to make sure that you know yes, the wedding gets done, but more importantly, that we're building what we want it to look like beyond that point. Um, because if we didn't have the proper foundation and anybody that's getting married, I strongly suggest premarital counseling. It's a preventative measure versus a reactive measure. I strongly, strongly suggest it because it's helped us greatly and given us tools and helped us to be like, okay, I knew that you said this, but I didn't always have the why behind what you were saying this. So
Right.
it was really important.
Right. Okay. So as we kind of get towards the first end of the first part of the interview or portion of the interview, everything that you kind of answered alludes to your faith, right? How important is faith to you, especially in this world where everybody it's nothing but methodology and ideology? Lord Jesus. So how important is your faith and how do you let that shine without, at the end of the day, everybody's gonna make a decision to do what they want to do or say what they want to say or believe in what they would do. How do you continue just to be you, and how important is your faith when it comes to all of that?
So my faith is extremely important to me, right? Because here's the thing. I can lean on different moments where my faith had to carry me through.
Mm,
We started the conversation when I was like Lincoln University, right? There have been moments where I know that God has shielded me from something. Like I was supposed to go to a party. I was like, nope, you need to stay in tonight. So said, so done. Something happened. That's the reason why it was important for me to stay in that moment. There have been moments where I was in high school and I wanted to go out. God was like, nope. And something happened. So my spirit is driven by my faith. Um, it's not just something for me to be like, okay, I'm going to church and that's where it ends. Like I have to do practical application every single day, right? Um 2023 has been amazing. I was able to join a fraternity. I was able to welcome my new son. I had work stuff, I had home responsibilities I had to do. Had to keep on rooting myself, and I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Because there was moments where it felt like my flesh was saying, "This is too much. You need to drop something." But my faith carried me through and said, "No. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's requiring you to do more. But I've already prepared everything before you. I just need you to now follow through on what you said you were going to do."
right.
Um, and sometimes when you're going through something, fear tries to not only open up and make itself available to you, but tries to impede on your process of what you're trying to get done.
Hmm.
And it comes in different forms. It comes in whether you're having some stirring in on the inside of you. It may even come in the form of doubt. Like, man, you said you was gonna do that, but you really gonna do that? Like, it comes up in different forms. So my faith is what grounds me every single day. I don't walk into my classroom or school without praying on with my wife on the phone. Um, I don't say I don't eat a meal without saying grace. Um, and even when I'm talking to people on a regular day conversation, I'm not gonna act like I was all about the Lord all my life. Let's just make that clear. I've been out in these streets. I knew what it was. Like I'm from Brooklyn. I've been out in these streets, but God said nope. Touch not my anointed, and He kept me on the straight and narrow. When I really wanted to veer off, He's like, this is where I need you. And has shielded me from quite a few things. Shielded me from diseases that could have came to my way. Shielded me from possibly getting kicked out of school because, again, when I said I went to Lincoln, there was a moment where my balance was a couple $1,000s higher than what the threshold was to stay on campus. And I distinctly remember coming back from financial aid office, going back to my dorm room in where was I at this time? I wasn't in McCrary. I was in Rendell. That's what I was. I was in Rendell, um, which a lot of sophomores and juniors are. Um, Still in a quad, and I prayed, and I said, "I'm not. I'm gonna pray without ceasing because I'm not gonna get up until the situation changes." My roommate comes in the room. He's like, "Why are you praying?" I was like, "I can't tell you right now. I'm focused." I just stayed on my knees and prayed, and then within an hour's time, kid you not, the mark that was laid out by financial aid for people who had to leave campus. I was a couple thousand above it, the threshold. And within an hour's time, that threshold extended beyond. So it made me allowed to be able to stay on campus with the current amount that I had owed at the time. Now that ain't me. That can only come from one and only one individual.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I tell people about my journey and about things that I've done, it's not me. It's God. He's using me. He's putting me in positions with different things, but it's not me. It's God.
Amen. That's deep. Amen. Amen. Anybody know go to HBC, you know what financial aid is like. It's crazy.
Uh,
Only somebody with the patience of God can deal with that.
exactly. And keep your receipts.
Yes, absolutely. But we still love our HBCU. Oh Lord.
Very daily, very daily.
Oh Lord. All right. It's kind of faith and fatherhood go hand in hand, no pun intended. But what's it like being a father, and how's important how important is fatherhood, especially like, you have with black and brown children, especially young black men. I mean, young black women go through it, and women and men of color. But you have some fathers are very well immersed in their life. You have some they're immersed to a certain extent, and you have some that are vacant. From the things that you learned about your father and growing up as a child, how important is fatherhood for you? How's it been? And then what are some things that you're taking from your relationship with your dad, and some things that you're not? Like, how's that journey been for you?
So it's funny you said that, right? Because not too many people know this, but we're transparent. We're gonna just be straight up about it. So my dad was not in my life at the age of 13, right? Um, him and my mom had a falling out, and police came to their home, escorted him out, and didn't see him at all for anything that I had for high school. My dad goes on dialysis when I'm in college,
Mm,
my sophomore year in college. My own flesh, my own thick-headedness was like, I don't want to go see him. Me and him having something to talk about. Um, and this is where my wife stepped in. She was like, you need to go ahead and see your dad.
mhm,
Going to see him is not about for him, it's about for you. Um, and it's the same thing with grace, right? God gives us grace and doesn't require anything for it, right? Doesn't say, oh, these are requirements that you need to do to meet grace. And it's the same thing that I had to exercise with my own father. I had to extend grace not for him, but for myself. I had to extend forgiveness not for him, but for myself. And some people like, well, why are you saying that forgiveness is for yourself and not the other person? The reason why forgiveness is for yourself and not for the other person, as my pastor would say, people will hold you hostage and you will continue to allow people to pay rent in your past
mhm,
because you haven't evicted them from your present. So I had to make a mental change my perspective and understand, like, you know what? He's in the Bronx at the time. I'm gonna go on a train from Brooklyn, hour and 15 minutes, one way, go see him, spend time with him, not just be there just to say I will check it off my list of saying that I did the Good Samaritan thing and went to go see him, but really spend time with him and really help him to understand where my perspective was and understand some of his perspective
right.
and not allow the past to overshadow what that moment was in the present. because ironically enough, I had to speak at my father's funeral. I
Wow.
was a keynote speaker at my father's funeral. So if I didn't do the work internally and mentally, I wouldn't have been able to deliver his eulogy in the reference that it deserved, right? So it was important for me to walk that walk. Now I have people who are around me, as you said, there are some fathers that are present. There are some fathers who are not. There are some fathers who are in the home, right? But they're not really being active in the home.
Right.
And I want y'all to understand the difference. So me being in using my personal household, I can come home from teaching
Hmm.
and I can say, okay, let me go upstairs, check on my wife, check on my son, and I could just check that off and say, okay, I did my job. No, being present is truly being embedded in the process, looking at his mannerisms. Why is he having his hand to his face like this?
Right.
Why is he, stirring the way he's stirring? You know, he has certain looks on his face at certain moments and times. Why is he doing that? Um, Developing during when I got to change him,
Hmm.
I tell Alexa, Alexa, play Pharrell Happy, right? And he goes from crying to now he's calm. So even at about to be 7 weeks old, I want him to understand that like it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to express emotions, but how you choose to control them, you have power over that. So that's an intentional step on my part. I have had my challenges. I've had the mentality, and I'm being transparent, where I felt like, hey, my son really doesn't like me right now.
Yeah. True.
I'm not feeling the love. Your mom comes in and it's like, oh, and he's calm.
Yeah.
I'll be with him for hours at the end, he won't go to sleep. But as soon as mom comes home, automatically tired. Right? So there have been moments where I felt like that,
Right.
or I felt a little defeated, or I felt a little challenged. But the beautiful thing about parenting and intentionally parenting
Hmm.
is that it's similar to what my mentor told me. On the good days, don't get too high. On the
Hmm.
challenging ones, don't get too low.
Hmm.
A constant step for step journey fatherhood is, and it doesn't stop, right? It
Yep.
only evolves over time and it requires you to look at your own stuff and be like, okay, what am I doing that's not serving my family? What am I not doing that I don't want my son to replicate?
Right.
What lessons do I want him to replicate? My dad instilled in me that education is important. I want him to understand that.
Absolutely. I love
It
that.
doesn't mean that you're going to enjoy every class. That doesn't mean that you're even going to enjoy every teacher that you have.
Work
But
now.
it's important.
Absolutely.
Use those tools to foster what you want to do and be intentional about what you want to do. But there's something to be had in every step of your journey. And I don't want you to forsake that step because you're so busy trying to happen what's going on over here.
Absolutely.
So that's something that I really want to instill in him.
Love it. I love it. You're already seeping into my next question. So we know you're a teacher, middle school social studies teacher in Delaware. Less than 10% of Black and Brown teachers in the workforce of education, especially K through 12. How have you adapted to teaching post pandemic, and especially with the culture of change, the culture of the kids that we serve now? How have you changed? How has your teaching changed? If this is a don't get fired question, I understand. Blink your eyes twice. But how have you changed? How have you adapted? Especially
No,
when
I,
teaching kids.
I have full autonomy. So the thing
Okay.
about it is that you know that students have challenges that are outside of your classroom. People say that all the time. There's so many workshops, so many professional development, so many conferences that's being told to you. But when you're in the day to day, sometimes you got to remind yourself. It's similar to any other relationship, right? If your spouse or someone comes in and you can't pinpoint why they're reacting the way that they're reacting in the moment, there's a chance that it may not have nothing to do with you, but you're in the closest proximity. And sometimes unintentionally, because that's how brain works, something you do, something you say, maybe even your parents, sometimes it's associated with something that wasn't so kind to them. So you're fighting that. The students that we serve, they're very much into technology,
Lord.
right? And don't get me wrong, technology can be a great thing when it's used in its proper moment and its proper case.
Hmm.
Now, where I find challenges is when you're trying to do a TikTok in class. I'm all about expression. I love music. I love movement. But I also recognize there's a time and a place for everything, right? So where I challenge my students is one, your phone shouldn't be at 10% at 10 o'clock in the morning. Um, and their response sometimes is, well, I didn't get a chance to charge it. I'm like, you're on it constantly. If you use your power saving mode on your phone, that would help your battery. And two, do you really need to have it out as often? Now, don't get me wrong. I do understand that parents and guardians need to get a hold of them throughout the day, and that might happen. And some of that is legitimate. But then there are other moments where I press the envelope and I say, hey, who are you on the phone with? Oh, I'm texting so and so. Text my mom, text my dad, or what have you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So if I get ready to call them right now, they're gonna say that that's what's happening. Then they start saying, "Oh, gotta hold yourself accountable." I think education, to some degree, is starting to turn into entertainment value
Mm,
rather than actually learning,
yeah.
because social media has ingrained in our students, you have to do something to catch my attention.
Mm.
I have to put
How do
on
you
a show.
circumvent that as a teacher?
So I
Right.
circumvent that by being honest with them. I said, not everything I am going to do is going to be entertaining to you, right? There might be some entertaining moments along the way, but that's not what we're going to be rooted in. We're going to be rooted in the learning process.
Hmm.
And then some students will say, oh, well, you're not teaching. And then my rebuttal is, so what does teaching look like for you? Oh, you going up on the board and going over the information and then allowing us to do it on their own. I
Mm.
said, "Oh." So we had a do now at the beginning of class, right? Yes. Did you not have guiding sentences to help you with your response? Yes. Did I read out loud the do now? Yes. Did I take responses from your peers? Yes. So I said, here's the thing. not all of you may be thinking this, but in the years I've been teaching, there's a good percentage that feels that I'm supposed to spoon feed you the information. I'm not going to do that because that's not doing you the greatest amount of service. It's actually doing you a disservice.
Hmm.
So, with that being said, I have to be intentional about handing the baton off. And the reason why I call it handing the baton off is
Hmm.
because I'm going to start and show you. And then I expect you to take the information I'm giving you and that's been modeled and work on it. Now, some of what I've heard is, I don't know how to do this.
Hmm.
Can you help me with this?
Hmm.
And I say, okay. And I say this to all my students. Did you read the directions? No, I didn't read the Okay. Respectfully, I need you to go sit back down, read the directions, carefully look over it. If you still have questions, now come back to me. And almost without fail, they go back, they
Hmm.
look at it, there's no question posed.
Wow. Gotta love it. So, father, believer, husband, educator, social activism, you might as well go ahead and throw it in there. Entrepreneur, nonprofit organization owner, which falls under entrepreneur. All these things, fraternity, frat brother, things of that nature. What does self care look like for you? Do you do self care? What does self care look like for you?
So, a good friend of mine asked me this question, um, ironically, during his bachelor party weekend.
Good time to talk about self care. That's fair.
Yeah. So, we were talking, and he said, "You do all this stuff. Do you ever take time for yourself?" And my New York mentality and my Capricorn nature never allowed me to really just like sit still and just let stuff be, because I'm always thinking like, okay, I have this time on my hands. What should I be doing with this time? Because for a long time, I measured my value and self worth in
Mhm.
how productive I was being.
Mm,
So high productivity, high self worth. If I didn't feel I was being as productive, I didn't feel like I had as much self worth. So from 30 on, I've learned to really take time to be by myself.
mhm,
I've learned to take time to watch a game.
mhm.
I've learned to take time and say, you know what, I want to go watch a movie by myself. Um, and really take time to communicate what I want.
Right.
And not just communicate what I want because this is what, you know, people think it should look like, but what do I really want to do it like? Because of past disappointments and things, I had a hard time communicating why or what I really wanted. Like I told my wife, Father's Day is coming up. Said I don't want the power tool. I don't want the tie. I don't want any of the things that are commercialized.
Right.
What I
Right.
personally want is to go watch Transformers. And what I personally want is to be able to do a spa treatment for myself.
Come on, Spa.
That's what I want for my Father's Day. So, just being intentional and being grounded in what I want to do and knowing that it's okay to take time for yourself, because sometimes what also happens as you're in a relationship, being a father, being a husband, you feel like if I take time for myself, then I'm taking away time from my family. And nothing can be farther from the truth. Taking time for yourself is allowing you to rejuvenate yourself, not only for yourself, but for your family.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. All right. Well, that concludes our first part of the interview. The second and third part really going to go by fast. This
okay.
part is called Quick Strike. So you only get 2 words to answer these questions. 2 words, one number, whatever, however you want to answer, but only two. So
Okay.
the first one, how do you rate the Indianapolis Colts draft class this year? How did you rate their draft
One,
out of one,
10.
one being the highest or one being the worst?
Worst.
Okay. We'll talk offline.
Mhm.
All right. Uh, what's the best teaching state? What state do you think has the best teaching formula, if that even is a real thing?
New York.
Hmm, I gotta love that. In 1 or 2 words, fatherhood is.
Hmm, worth it.
Love it. All right. Next part is all caps or no caps. All caps meaning a lie. No caps meaning the truth. Hint on the wordplay. I know it's corny. All right. The black dollar will get back to staying in the respective community longer than 10 hours. All caps or no caps?
Um, all caps.
So it's a lie. We won't get back to it.
Um, it has to be intentionality on our part. It can happen, but it has to be intentionality on our part. And I don't know if everyone's willing to have that same amount of intentionality.
Mm,
Can be done,
that's real.
but we have to be intentional about it.
That's real. The Lakers will win another title before 2030.
No cap.
Okay. Magic Johnson is the best Laker.
Mm, Hmm.
It's okay. Worst thing happens to Dexo Magic removes itself from all HBCUs. Not a bad thing. Just kidding. No, I'm so serious.
All caps.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, all right, Mr. Samuel, it's been a great interview. Before we let you go out the virtual back door, what are some social media handles people can follow you on?
I'm glad you asked that. So on Instagram, I can be found on Aim to Succeed 89.
Mhm.
I'm also can be found at I'm Possibility 89. Um, I'm also on LinkedIn, Calvin Samuel. Um, I'm also on Facebook. I do have a AIM page, but you can also contact me as Calvin Samuel on Facebook.
All right. And then one last question. If you can have any phrase or sentence on a billboard about to inspire the people or talk to your younger self, what would it be?
Trust your gut, but give no but.
Trust your gut, but give no but. All right. Well, we're wrapping up another episode of Creative Perception. We want to say thank you to Calvin Samuel for hopping on the pod today for Creative Perceptions, where your dreams meet your reality. All right, everybody, have a good night. God bless. Appreciate you, good bro.
Thank you.
You were with me, you were with me.